So I just got back from the Spotify Greasy Tunes, Zanzi Raps edition. So excited about that. And it just made me think about a lot of things as far as our industry goes. And when I say our industry, I'm not just referring to music, the music industry. I mean like our industry as a whole, you know. And when I say our, I'm referring to everyone who's contributing to this one thing, this one big thing that, we're offering, because when you organize an event, there's so many industries that are operating in that moment. There's musicians who are coming to render a service. There's, people building stages who are rendering a service. There's people running the bar. There's people doing lights. There's so many industries that are working together. And I don't think we know that or we embrace that enough. The whole working together of our industries. There's such a weird disparateness. It's like everybody's in their own. Granted, these are different skill sets that you learn in different faculties, and like in music school, you're not taught how to put a stage together. You're not taught how to project manage. There's people who have been taught this thing. So by virtue of these separate things happening, we don't really appreciate them beyond our sphere of concern as musicians, as promoters, as A&Rs, and we're all in one industry, dude. And we operate like we don't need each other, whereas we really do. So I think something that I feel like is an interesting solve or a thought, because it seems very utopian in my mind as far as the realisticness of its execution. But if we had a common goal that everyone knew, let's think about what we call this industry. There's the music industry, there's the events industry, there's the architecture industry for, obviously, let's say, putting together stages and sets. There's the alcohol industry. There's so many industries that come together. I think let's think about maybe the one exercise that brings all of us together, which is usually events. It's usually events. And those events, as I said, there's sub businesses, there's sub industries operating at these events. There's the musicians, there's the hosts, there's the promoters, there's the project managers. There's so many industries, but okay, fine. Anyway, so let's call it the events, and I want to say entertainment, but I don't want to say entertainment because that speaks specifically to entertaining people, but not really. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Let's call it, in fact, if we had to add an extra deeper layer to it, let's think about what we're trying to achieve by doing all these things. And that really needs us to look at our consumer, the listener, right? We look at the listener and we think about what are they gaining from what we're doing? What are we catering to? What are we speaking to with these efforts? And some of the things that come to mind are, some people are escaping something, let's say hypothetically, and what we have to offer, by creating music, by retelling our stories, or by hosting something, they get away from something. Possibly, maybe if they feel like their life is mundane, and or they love their friends so much, and what we create is a context in which the community comes together. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's something emotional that we speak to, and if we all identified that, everybody would be on the same page. So let's say hypothetically it was the escapist industry, but that's terrible. Let's not call it that. Let's call it hypothetically. Anyway, let's call it the what do you call this thing in English, man? Things, it speaks to so many things, man. But anyway, let's call it, this is tough. I just need to think of words so I can move on to my next point, right? Let's call it the emotion industry. Damn. Sounds like it's psychology. But yeah, you never know. could be. But anyway, let's call it the E-industry. E-industry. We're all in this E-industry, right? And we're all technically subcontractors in this E-industry. The E-industry says, guys, people are depressed. The stats say it's gone up by 100%. No, by 50%. We need to do something about it. What do we do? Yes, music industry. So we need to do. Okay, that's interesting. Actually, to their point, yes. Events organizer people. What are your thoughts? Yeah, so if we did this already, yes, that's interesting. Also, you guys are in the stage design industry. I feel like your lights. Oh yeah, you've got that sort of conversation. Granted, as I said, this is very utopian, so it's not terribly realistic. But if, for example, we were all answering a brief beyond our own personal satisfaction, like being an artist, that thing of, oh, wow, I'm performing, people love me, and I do this to people, whatever, Beyond all of these things, imagine we all spoke to one thing that was briefed in by the universe, or by somebody, man, that said, hey, guys, people need this thing, and you guys really have the tools, maybe a bigger, the client. Who's the client? The world. The world. The world says, guys, we want to do this. These are the stats. We need the best to do it. Imagine our industry spoke like that, There's just such a disparateness, man. That's what I'm realizing. There's a disparateness with, managers and artists and labels. I'm obviously going to speak from that perspective because that's one of my perspectives anyway. But yeah, there's a big otheringness, as if we're not kind of contributing to the same thing. And that's where internal fighting begins, That's where, again, I'll speak from the artist perspective. That's where, artists being late for sound check, for example, it doesn't make sense, because if we all knew what we were doing, and it's not just I'm coming to play my role and then I fuck off, but if we all knew that, guys, the bigger scope is this. But, again, utopian, not terribly realistic. We're humans, we're different and multifaceted. Yo, that's all. I was just thinking out loud. Every Wednesday, Barber Black Sheep, your weekly touch-up. Normal. It's going to do amazing things this year. Come fuck with us. Yeah, just a thought, man. Just a thought.